The method. The Father pondered what would be his most incredible creation. His servants would not understand because it was beyond their experience. Sitting in his throne room and surrounded by those servants, he formed a thought, and out of the center of his conception stepped a form, the firstborn of this creation, born not as the rest of us would be, but simply from his own will. The physical manifestation of himself appeared. Now from the beginning he knew what he would face. It was necessary, for the creation would fall. It came with the territory of free choice. Any choice made away from perfection would be, by definition, imperfection. Choice, the primary component of love, had to be present, for God is love. Mankind could choose to love and serve God, who is perfection, or not, but there could not be love given, nor returned, without choice. From the choice of the created, pain would arise. By the will of the Creator, hope would erupt and overcome the pain, thereby giving mankind the freedom to choose once again to love. So out of his mouth, at the very sound of a word, worlds were formed, order was established, and the plan was put into place. Where man would fail, God become flesh would succeed. Where man would birth sin and death, the God-man would bring life and abundance of purpose. Where man would bring sorrow and distress, the Son of Man would absorb the sorrow, take it within himself, and bring forth peace. Where man would break the relationship God ultimately desired, God himself would heal what man had shattered, making the way possible. The man. He lay in the arid heat for a minute's respite, the roar of the crowd momentarily muffled by his personal plight. The dust of the road, commingled with dried urine from bedchamber pots thrown out every morning from houses along his current route, invaded his nostrils and caked on his body. Attracted and sealed by sweat and blood that poured from open wounds, he had fallen yet once again. As he struggled to regain his feet, reminded of his wooden burden by the sharp pain of a leather strap, the man placed one battered hand palm down in the dirt, stabilized his load with the other, and pulled a knee underneath his body. Looking beneath him, he saw his leg wasn't as straight as it should be. The ligaments behind his knee had been partially torn by a particularly spiteful nail cruelly knotted into the end of a cat o' nine tails that had found its way around his knee before anchoring into the soft flesh behind it. The skin, literally stripped and flayed away by coarse strips of leather dipped in the adhesive of lamb's blood, his wooden burden rubbed and dug deeper into the unprotected flesh that had not been designed to bear the weight of anything but the skin that clung now to a soldier's whip left hanging to dry in a courtyard behind him. Physical pain was not the only thing that threatened to consume him. Despair licked its hungry chops, prowling in tighter circles around him as a ravening beast, hesitating slightly before going in for the kill. Most of those closest to him had fled at the first sign of danger. Even the one who he loved was nowhere to be seen. The one who had begun the night standing his ground had already betrayed him multiple times. Still and yet, it was his people who mocked him as he stood again with an unassuaged, insatiable desire for cruelty that genuinely broke his heart. Hadn't he wept for them barely a week before? Yet now, his visage eradicated by 40 save one, as the cruel executioner earlier had swung the whip, separating flesh from body, this nearly unrecognizable human form, partially dragging his injured leg, bearing a wooden cross, found another tear to shed for the people who had nothing for him but hate. The beast would be thwarted, craving unsatisfied, for he must not and would not cave to despair. The mission. Abuse upon abuse, the cruelty of cruelties, the power of sin sought to exact its damage upon the very one who had spoken existence into being. The plan had been in place before the original words had been said, Yehi or, Vayehi or, let there be light, there was light. He himself had said those things. Now that very light sought to add insult to injury on the Judean road outside of Jerusalem, for the midday sun heated the putrid dirt beneath his body, causing the acrid smell of human and animal waste to rise in a pungent reminder of what he knew was coming. As the weight of sin began to rest on his shoulders, the real battle ensued. For sin takes its toll on the body as the physical price of evil. The ravages of abuse, addiction, anger, gluttony, and sexual perversion seek to pound man into submission of slavery to anything but his Maker. The man felt every devastation physically possible at the end of the whip, the burden of the cross, and the nails piercing the skin. Sin also exacts its price upon the mind as distrust, hatred, envy, and fear, causing dysfunction in every relationship. The man endured the betrayal of friends, abandonment of principle, and the separation from all things resembling humanity as he was mocked, spit upon, lied about, and despised. But as always, the heart of the matter is a matter of the heart. Sin batters the spirit, separating it from its source of life as surely as unplugging life support from the dying results in their deaths. It was the final hurdle. It was to be the man's final accomplishment on that fatal afternoon, for he would take on the separation between life and life support, between soul and spirit, between God and man. For the one who holds all things together by his will, the very one who is life itself, and the one who breathed life into the creation, would voluntarily lay his down and separate life from the life-giver. In so doing, the man would reach across the unspannable gulf between life and death and provide a bridge to any who would cross. Light flickered in the mid-afternoon sky before sputtering out altogether, plunging the world into darkness. How else could the creation express the light of all things being extinguished? The physical pain had been unbearable, and the emotional trauma had been complete. Still, the spiritual anguish in that moment of separation exploded unconstrained by dimensional bonds going out from its epicenter throughout the creation, moving backward and forward through time. "It is finished!" the man cried, as the unthinkable and impossible was complete. The impassable was passed, the unbuildable bridge spanned the infinite gulf, and the foundation formed for the relationship between God and man. The mechanism was in place, for the road had been constructed, but the way was dark, for in the spiritual realm all was in darkness. The light of life had blown out. The means. The method had been met. The mission was complete, but the man's body lay in repose behind a sealed stone entrance to a tomb. The man, however, was not finished. The way must be lit. The light of life must return. Life is not life without the life-giver, and without the spark, there can be no fire. The Son of Man, Son of God, God become flesh, had yet something to do. Though the plan had succeeded, what is a path that cannot be seen? What good is a road that remains hidden? The darkness lessened, the gloom began to lighten, and a spark appeared in the spiritual realm as the light of life stepped forward onto the path, lighting the way for all to see. Ripples spread into the physical. The ground began to tremble and shake. The earth groaned as if in the final stages of giving birth. As the sun rose in the east, the stone rolled from the entrance of the tomb, and the sun rose indeed. The path was made, and the way is lit for all to see. The sign has been hung, stating clearly, "Whosoever will may come," and he is waiting for you there.